Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be my monthly eyeshadow use up check-in video, and also this is going to be my 14-month update to my Eyeshadow No Buy. So after my beauty replacements only No Buy year 2019, I decided to continue an Eyeshadow No Buy, and I have decided to do this one for 2020 and 21. So we do still have 22 months of this Eyeshadow No Buy left. During that time I want to see my pan percentage grow, and I want to see the total number of eyeshadows go down in my collection. That's why I'm talking all of these numbers, because for me it is really motivating. When I really see that change in my collection, it really motivates me to keep going, even though there are all the time interesting releases and palettes that I would like to get. There are indie brands that I would like to try, but I don't need to get anything right now. I rather want to show love to the things I do have currently in my collection. So let's first talk about my eyeshadow collection numbers. I do have 14 eyeshadow palettes in my collection plus one C palette. This is the same time last month, but there is a change in loose eyeshadows. I do have 20 loose eyeshadows now in my collection. Last month I had 21. I decided to declutter one loose eyeshadow. It's a loose eyeshadow from Prism Cosmetics called Scared Potter. And it is like a light, shimmery, warm green that almost pulls yellow, and it's just not my favorite thing. If I want to go for that kind of color, I would much rather wear a matte lime green. In my C palette I do have 33 pressed single eyeshadows. Some of them are depotted, but the total number of pressed eyeshadows in my collection is 206. So with the 206 pressed eyeshadows and 20 loose eyeshadows, I do have in total 226 eyeshadows in my collection. So that is one less eyeshadow than last month. However, I haven't still finished any eyeshadows this year. But let's talk about my pan percentage, because this is really exciting to me. So I do have, as I said, 206 pressed eyeshadows in my collection, and I hit 3 new pans in February. All of those were in my pan palette, so I will link my pan palette playlist down below if you want to check it out. So right now I do have 21 pans showing in my collection, and that makes my pan percentage to be 10.19, when last month it was 8.74. So I'm really happy to see my pan percentage being over 10. However, most likely this is not going to grow during the next couple of months. I think it's more likely going to decrease, and that's because some of my eyeshadows that I have hit pan on are almost gone, and I will be finishing most likely some of my eyeshadows during the next couple of months. And when I finish an eyeshadow, I don't count it anymore as eyeshadow I have hit pan on, and that will make my pan percentage lower. So most likely next month this is not going to be over 10 anymore, but I'm really happy that it's there right now, and my main goal is to use up some of my older eyeshadows. That's why I'm panning my Modern Renaissance, because it's really getting older. I want it used up. So let's quickly go through my progress this year. In January I hit 2 pans, and in February I hit 3 pans. So in total I have hit 5 new pans this year. That is so exciting. I haven't finished any eyeshadows yet this year, and I have decluttered 1 eyeshadow from my collection this year. Okay, so in these videos I always want to talk about any temptations I may have had during the past month. So in January, for example, I mentioned the Juvia's Place, the mini palettes that were launched in the very beginning of January. I don't think there has been any new releases in February that I have been tempted by. However, I have been thinking about what kind of brands I want to buy and support after my Eyeshadow No Buy. My goal is to get my eyeshadow palette collection to be maximum 10, and that 10 palettes I want to include all of my C palettes. And I have been actually thinking about singles during the past month. I saw this video from Sophia. She is pretty new YouTuber. I think her channel is amazing. I will link her down below. Her channel is called Conscious Beauty. So she filmed this video that why she doesn't buy eyeshadow palettes anymore and why she buys singles, and that really made me think about purchasing singles and maybe trying to avoid purchasing eyeshadow palettes after my Eyeshadow No Buy. I don't say that I will never purchase eyeshadow palettes. There are for sure some brands that I would like to support, but I really did enjoy Sophia's video, and a lot what she was talking about made a lot of sense. Very often in palettes there are a lot of repeat shades, and when I'm panning palettes, I don't usually have any problems panning the lighter eyeshadows, but the deeper eyeshadows in the palettes, or if there are colorful eyeshadows, I am really struggling with those. But another thing that Sophie's video made me think about is maybe depotting some of my palettes at some point, even if I want to keep most or if not all of the eyeshadows. Right now I'm not going to depot my palettes just because I have one C palette and it's full and I don't want to get another C palette right now. However, after this no buy is over, my eyeshadows are starting to be really old. Like, well, the Eyeshadow No Buy has 10 been going for 3 years. So all of my eyeshadows are over 3 years old. Maybe at that point it would make sense for me to depot my palettes. If I think about depotting my eyeshadow palettes, the first palette that comes to my mind is the Juvia's Place Tidouche eyeshadow palette. I know this is many people's favorite palette. I do like this palette too. However, for me it's more like I like these shadows individually, but I don't find this color story that easy to come up with different looks, and I always when I talk about this palette I complain about crepes being way too warm compared to the other eyeshadows. So I think if I depotted this palette I would get so much more use out of these colors if I stored these eyeshadows with my other singles. Then I do have another example of palette that I can see myself for sure depotting in future, but for very different reasons than the Douche palette. I'm talking about the BH Cosmetics Carly Bible Deluxe Edition palette. If you know me at all, you probably know that this is one of my favorite palettes. I panned the original Carly Bible and I do love this palette. I do love Carly Bible, and for me this is a really cohesive color story. However, as you can see, there's so much wasted space here in the palette, especially since most of the highlighters are gone. I have used up 2 of the highlighters and then these 2 deeper ones I just crushed out because there's no way I could have used those as highlighters. This palette is taking now so much unnecessary space, so it would be much more convenient to depot the palette, have the face highlighters with my other depotted face highlighters and blushes. I do have a palette where I do keep my depotted blushes and highlighters, and then have these eyeshadows with some other singles. But as I said, I don't want to depot my eyeshadows right now. It's just something I have been thinking about. But once my no buy is getting closer to its end, maybe then I will go and depot some of my palettes, especially since, as I said, all of my eyeshadows are bought before 2019, so they are starting to be older then. Then something I quickly want to mention about purchasing eyeshadows after my no buy year. I don't see myself never purchasing pre-made palettes, but I'm not really even interested of buying really popular brands like Too Faced or ABH or Urban Decay, or even when I think about some of my absolute favorite brands when it comes to eyeshadows, like for example BH Cosmetics, a lot of the palettes they put out have a lot of shades that repeat each other. And then Juvia's Place, as I have said, puts out color stories that for me don't make a lot of sense, and I always need to use something else with those palettes. However, there are certain type of brands that I would really like to support and give my money to these brands because I truly believe in what they are doing. I do have a couple of examples that I quickly want to mention. So first is Aether Beauty. They are cruelty-free, all vegan, more eco-friendly brand. They do have this palette called Amethyst Crystal Gemstone Palette and it looks amazing. One day I want to find my perfect purple palette and honestly this might be it. When you look at the palette, the picture of the palette, it looks like it's like a combination of neutral and purple, but I think it really leans more purple, even though it might look kind of like more muted purple in some of the pictures. Last month I was lusting over the Juvia's Place the Violets palette, and even though it's a beautiful palette, it's not really something that everyday appropriate for me. And you know, I just think I would get way more use out of this Aether Beauty palette, so that's something I might get after my No Buy. Another brand that is really interesting to me is called Shared Planet. Sarah Rose has been raving about the Polar Pear palette from this brand. The Polar Pear palette is more like a cool toned palette, not necessarily my color story, but they do have another palette that is called Tiger Eyeshadow Palette, and that looks like my perfect palette. So for sure something I might get in the future. This brand sounds really amazing. They are also cruelty free, all vegan. They claim to be child labor free. I don't know how that can be confirmed, but that's what they claim. And this brand shares a portion of their sales to animal charities, which I think is amazing. And what is really amazing about this brand too is that the owner of this brand is only 17 years old. Definitely a brand that I would be ready to support rather than Too Faced or ABH or some other brand that just like wants to make huge profit. But I think that was everything for today. These videos shouldn't be that long, but they always end up being long because I have a lot to talk about. Maybe next month the only thing I will talk about is my current eyeshadow use up follow up thing. But yeah, today it was a little bit longer. Thank you so much for watching this video and see you in my next one. Bye bye.